Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Weekend Update.
I'm Ethan Butler, and you're not.
It's been a big week in news.
No kidding. Even dog headlines have been contaminated by American politics.
Kristi Noem seems to be trying to make her brutal execution of a puppy into part of her campaign.
She threatened to kill the president's dog, too.
Wow.
For something a little bit less sad, Ekoko has a fun challenge to try.
Greetings, KHMS. Now it's time for my attempts to summarize every school subject in 10 words or less. My coworker, Ethan Butler, says I want to write a complex segment on Euler's constant if I did this, so yeah. Math, solve for x, and lose points for an addition mistake. ELA, always find a way to stop on a cliffhanger. Choir, promotes historically inaccurate musical. Social studies, you think it's school history, it's economics. Science, watch as science gives your teacher sunglasses and a fedora. Walter? And band, Whiplash with music about trains.
Well, that was pretty fun.
Israel just banned Al Jazeera.
Al's Blazer, what's that?
Al Jazeera. It was a Qatar-based news network that was very critical of the Israel-Hamas war.
That's censorship.
Yep, some people are comparing Israel and Gaza to the Battle of Nanking during World War II. It's
World War II!
oh God, what have I done?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are covering the Pacific Theater of World War II, because remember, kids, World War II was fighting in two theaters, not just in Europe. So, we start in 1939 with an expansionist and militaristic Japan. They have the dreams of something called a Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. It's anti-colonialist while still being, colonialist. Their end goal is to take over all of the Pacific, establishing puppet governments, with Japan as the hegemon of the Pacific, kicking out the current colonial powers like the Dutch, Britain, and the United States. So, Japan, looking to capitalize on weak nations, see that China has been in a civil war for a good 20 years now, called the National Protection War, and are now fighting between Kuomintangists and communists. Japan, seeing a divided China like this, seizes the opportunity and quickly attacks in something called the Marco Polo Bridge Incident. They utilize their pre-existing puppet states in Manchuria and Manchukuo to attack down into China, quickly seizing the city of Beijing after a tough fight. However, against Japanese predictions, the Chinese don't exactly love being invaded by foreign powers. The sparring communists and Kuomintangists actually form a temporary alliance called the Chinese United Front to resist Japan. However, it's not enough. Japan quickly pushes down from the north and Beijing down to their current capital of Nanking, committing a lot of war crimes along the way. Japan didn't really have control of its military, which led them to do some genuinely horrible things. But it wasn't enough. Japan was a lowly island nation with very few natural resources. So fighting a prolonged conflict, seeing as the front lines are now frozen, in China, was not going to be anything sustainable. So Japan realizes, okay, we need natural resources. The colonies in the south, like the Dutch East Indies and the British Raj and French Indochina, are absolutely bursting at the seams with natural resources like rubber that we can use to keep the fight going. So Japan stages a couple of incidents and at Panay. However, they're forced to apologize as their military and navy realize, oops, we weren't ready for an attack yet. Our bad. And they try to play it off with Western powers. However, after France surrendered in 1940 and Japan seized their colonial property of Indochina, which is modern-day Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, the Allies were running out of patience with Japan, and Japan was running out of patience with their military. So, Japan, on December 7th, 1941, realizing that they were going to have to do this at one point or another, launched an attack on Pearl Harbor to keep their war machine going, putting them at war with the United States and the rest of the Western powers. However, the United States was not even close to ready for war. While they did manage to put up a surprisingly good defense at the end of the Pearl Harbor attacks, the Allies and the United States were knocked completely off their feet. The Dutch exile government in Batavia and the Dutch East Indies was quickly conquered as Japan went on a spree, seizing other nations' territory. They took Hong Kong. They marched down through Burma with the Allies in Siam. They seized Singapore. They seized Malaysia. They seized the Philippines. They seized a lot of territory that it would take a long time for the Allies to get back. They were attacking down to the island of Guadalcanal by 1943, and this was where the first actual conflict between the United States and Japan on the ground would actually take place, with a decisive American victory. This began the island-hopping campaign, where the United States began bam, 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 hitting every single island they could to kind of pave a ocean path towards Japan. However, their biggest impediment in this campaign was the Navy, because Japan, despite not being a colonial power, had an absolutely massive navy that could barely be stopped. The only nation with a bigger battle fleet that it could currently allot to Asia was our good friend, the US of A. After meeting for a decisive battle at Midway in 1942, the Japanese Navy was crippled beyond repair, sinking countless carriers and dealing immense damage to the Japanese Navy, effectively immobilizing them from continuing much of a war and invading other islands. But Japan was now on the defensive. Every single island was a desperate fight, trying to prevent the Americans and the Allies from reaching their homeland. China began launching counteroffensives as the Burma Road was reopened following Raj counteroffensives. For reference, the Burma Road is how the Allies supplied China. By 1945, it was just Japan. They had lost all their other islands. Only the home islands were left. But Japan was a fanatical nation in terms of nationalism. They would have literally rather died than see their nation surrender, which, isn't great. So the United States, realizing that they would take higher casualties from just straight up invading the place, decided, okay, you know what? Oppenheimer has tested this new technology called the nuclear bomb. We're going to drop it on 2 cities in Japan, and we'll drop even more if they don't surrender. So by 1945, Japan, despite being vehemently anti-surrender after the first bombing, realized that the United States was not joking. They saw the effects, and were eventually forced to surrender, leading to the end of World War II as we know it. That was World War II, the Pacific Theater, in a nutshell. Thanks for watching, and now, back to the main desk.
Did you hear that the TSA almost let a guy with 4 snakes in his luggage fly?
I have had it with these...
This is a school news show.
Yeah. Either way, 2 more weeks to go, people.
Time isn't just running out here, it's running out on TikTok.
Yeah, ByteDance is freaking out as the Chinese Communist Party is now lobbying against the United States Congress.
Yep, no connections there.
Either way, time to round out this show. Thanks for watching, KHMS.